better experience, please use headphones. Let us finish this series with the true story of Tim Johnson, a cruel and unfortunate occurrence to keep in mind when dealing with these mental conditions. The Haunting of Tim Johnson, a true story. Our final story is about a man named Tim Johnson who lived in a small town called Millfield, Ohio. Tim had always been a light sleeper, and he was used to waking up at the slightest noise. But one night, Tim's sleep was interrupted by a strange and unsettling sound. He opened his eyes to find that he was paralyzed and unable to move or speak. He tried to call out for help, but no sound came out of his mouth. He could feel a presence in the room with him, a shadowy figure standing at the foot of his bed. The figure was tall and thin, with long, spindly fingers and a grotesque, elongated face. His eyes glowed with a sinister light, and its mouth was twisted into a grotesque smile. Tim's heart raced as the figure approached him, its cold, clammy hands reaching out to touch him. He could feel its icy grip on his skin, its hot, putrid breath on his face. He knew he had to escape. But how? He was trapped in his own body, unable to move or defend himself. And then, with a sudden burst of energy, he managed to break free of the paralysis and jumped out of bed. Tim woke up, drenched in sweat, his heart still racing. It had all been a nightmare brought on by his sleep paralysis. But he couldn't shake off the feeling that something was still in his room with him, waiting to claim him in his dreams. Tim was shaken by the experience, and he knew he had to do something about his sleep problems. He went to see Dr. Elizabeth Smith in the nearby city of Middleton, who diagnosed him with sleep paralysis and prescribed him medication to help him sleep more soundly. Thanks to the treatment, Tim was able to overcome his sleep paralysis and get a good night's rest. But after a bit, he noticed strange noises in his house, and he would often feel a presence watching him when he was alone. He even saw shadows moving in the corners of his eyes, and he couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being followed. Tim couldn't take it anymore, and he decided to investigate the source of these strange occurrences. He scoured the internet for information, and he found a possible explanation for his experiences. He might be dealing with a poltergeist. Poltergeists are believed to be malevolent spirits that cause disturbances and make noises in order to get attention. They are often associated with intense emotions and psychological turmoil, which Tim definitely had after his traumatic sleep paralysis experience. But as Tim delved deeper into his research, he began to suspect that the presence haunting him was something even more sinister. He found stories of a creature known as the Nightmare Stalker, a malevolent being reportedly seen by people all over the world that dwells within the nightmares of its victims. Tim wasn't sure if he believed in such supernatural entities, but he couldn't deny that something was haunting him. He knew he had to find a way to banish this so-called Nightmare Stalker and restore peace to his home. He consulted with a local paranormal investigator named Jessica Watson, who had a reputation for dealing with these kinds of entities. Ms. Watson was a no-nonsense kind of woman with a wealth of knowledge on the paranormal. She listened attentively as Tim told her about his experiences, and she quickly determined that he was indeed dealing with a Nightmare Stalker. These creatures are rare, but they are extremely dangerous, Ms. Watson told Tim. They feed on fear and negative energy, and they can be difficult to get rid of. But don't worry, I have a plan. Miss Watson explained that the key to banishing a Nightmare Stalker was to confront it head on and show it that you're not afraid. She gave Tim a few instructions on how to do this, including setting up protective barriers around his home and performing cleansing rituals to purify the space. Tim was skeptical, but he decided to try it out for himself. Nothing worked. He tried to see different doctors to make his visions disappear through medication, but nothing seemed to work. As time passed, Tim noticed that he was starting to forget things. He would walk into a room and forget why he was there, or he would misplace his keys and phone. He became more and more forgetful, and it started to interfere with his daily life. One day, he went to see Dr. Smith again, and she told him that his sleep paralysis had likely caused him to develop dementia. Tim was devastated by the news, and he knew that his life would never be the same. He tried his best to cope with his declining memory, but it became harder and harder to do so. He started to see the nightmare stalker more frequently, and he knew that it was feeding off of his fear and confusion. Tim's family and friends tried to help him, but it was too late. He was too far gone, consumed by his dementia and haunted by the nightmare stalker. He spent his final days in a state of confusion and fear, barely able to communicate or recognize those around him. And so, Tim Johnson's life came to a macabre end. His mind and body slowly consumed by the darkness that had taken hold of him. Thank you for watching the Sleep Paralysis series. We hope these 3 horror stories gave you a good time. We'll upload more short stories like these in the future, so subscribe and stay tuned for more. For our next video, we have a truly terrifying tale from a Ukrainian soldier who experienced the horrors of war firsthand. If you think you can handle more, be sure to watch our next video, The Real War Story of a Ukrainian Soldier. We'll see you then.